Good noon, everybody. It is not yet afternoon, at least for us. Welcome to our penultimate episode of The Moon at Noon. It's our second last one, and we are on Eclipse Day today, if it wasn't already obvious.
Our intro was accurate almost to what happened this morning.
Yeah, actually it was, although it wasn't what the moon would have looked like at noon today, but it was close.
I thought your joke was about it's also the umbreal, meaning shadow day of the episode.
Well, there's John. You can introduce yourself, the dad of the group.
John's the dad, yeah.
King of lame dad jokes, yeah.
King of lame dad jokes. I am so tired, and that's all I'm going to introduce myself with today.
Well, what's your name?
I'm Jenna. Sorry, I'm Jenna. Doing great.
I'm Samantha, and I am less tired because I took a nap when I got home this morning for Eclipse viewing. But yeah.
So welcome to the stream today. We're going to start things off with a poll. I know we're only 3 minutes in. Sorry, everybody. You're going to have to engage. We want to know if you saw the eclipse, or if you even wanted to see the eclipse, or if you just stayed in bed. So we've launched the poll. Cast your votes. We all three of us managed to see it. The weather was good in all of our locations. John live streamed it. What's your handle, John?
Yeah, so if you want to watch a live stream, and this is just basically this view through the telescope, and so I had it open for 40 minutes, so that was a pretty large portion. So it went past sort of the maximum coverage for Halifax, which is about 70%. And yeah, so that's at Learn to Stargaze. So just Learn to Stargaze on YouTube. And then there's a 4-minute stream, Learn to Stargaze, on Instagram.
If you're on YouTube, just drop in the chat if you've done it.
Yes, do that. We'll do our best to keep an eye on the chat as well.
Also, Chris just, they said that they were up at 5 a.m., out the door by 5:15 and by the conservation area dam by 5:30. Sunrise at 5:47. You just backed and asleep. You just described my morning exactly, like down to the time. I was at McDonald's at 5:15. I was set up at my spot at 5:30.
So
here are our results.
That's pretty good.
Quite a few people saw it.
That.
Well done, everybody. For those of you who are getting up early. I apologize.
Care about eclipses.
That's fair. You don't have to care about eclipses.
That's the professional astronomer answer.
Yeah, I've had a few professional astronomers or really advanced amateurs being like, partial eclipses are boring, and it's like, yeah. But they're still cool. So
if it gets people excited about science, that's important.
All that matters.
Yeah, we had so I set up on Citadel Hill in Halifax, and we had joggers. It's a popular jogging path as well. People run up the hill. And so people would go by, and I had the eclipse, the big telescope, and I had my phone. And so as they were jogging by, they would see the people wondering what they were doing. Maybe they were just watching the sunrise, but then they would see, and they were like, whoa, what's on that screen? And so we had a couple great conversations, and I handed out eclipse glasses as well. So it's a good time.
I'm trying to find me.
Yeah.
I was at Colonel Samuel Smith Park on the shore of Toronto, Lake Ontario, just west of Toronto. And I used math to figure out how to do this because photo pills costs money and my time is worth nothing. So I just spent a bunch of time figuring out, I'm kidding, it's worth at least a little bit, but figuring out how high I wanted the sun to be on the CN Tower and how far away I needed to be to see it at that spot. And then it just so happened that there was a park right there. There have been better photos posted on social media where the sun is actually bisecting the CN Tower, which is really cool. And Samantha, you were out in Kitchener, right?
Yeah, Waterloo, almost to St. Jacobs. I am very new to this, as you all know, of speaking of my blunder last time, but I did see the moon. I viewed the moon, Jenna, maybe not the way I thought I would.
You did it.
I did it. So I didn't get my eclipse glasses till yesterday around 10 p.m. last night. We were just trying to find a spot that was flat because unfortunately we have no water near us or super high points that I knew of. My dad wakes up at 5 a.m. anyways for work. So I was like, you're coming with me. And yeah, I was just out on a country road just before the St. Jacobs Farmers Market, if anybody knows where that is, and took these with my phone.
Well done.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
those are
prepare
great.
more.
I
for
like the
2024.
one that's cut off by the horizon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's neat.
That's super cool. Thank you all for sharing your eclipse photos with us. I'm going to do a quick share of my screen to just go through some of them that you shared. We had, and just general photos, actually. First of all, where'd that go? Where was that tab? I wanted to show, not that one. Where'd it go? Not Natalie Burdick either. There we go. This was from Richard's telescope, who actually got a photo of the moon at noon. This is our namesake. This photo was taken at noon with a 12% illuminated moon. So well done. Yeah. That made me very happy. Thank you for sharing it with us. We have some eclipse stuff from Gary, who sometimes watches these streams, and this was posted in the RAS group with a lovely time lapse here. Dave Chapman, this is the first episode that Dave Chapman won't be in the comments, and so if we say something wrong, we won't be corrected.
Oh, Gary's in the chat right now.
Gary in the chat. Well done, Gary.
It's beautiful. That's where I want to be at. Like,
yeah. It's insane. Yeah, it's so good. And the fact that you threw this together so quickly, I'm really impressed. We have this photo from Lisa as well. Lisa's also in the chat, so well done with this, Lisa. This is
I love that. Oh, the seagull.
And the seagull. Oh, perfect. And Lisa and I were chatting on Facebook this morning. Lisa lives in New Jersey, and so this is like the little New Jersey devil horns, which is perfect.
Yeah.
More photos from Dave Chapman and more photos from Lisa as well. These are separate individual photos with a contrail in front. Very nice. And then one from Sky News. I really liked the little horns on the Sky News one too. This is Alendria's, which was a really, really great one. So thank you all for sending in your photos. And it was really nice to see so much activity on social media this morning with everything that was going on. I'm so glad that some of you got out to see it and got some photos to show for it. Well done, everybody. So we're gonna just briefly talk about what it actually is, because all of us ran into, I think maybe not Samantha, at least some of us ran into people who were kind of like not really sure what they were seeing, which is fair because it's not really a very common occurrence. And it's also sometimes hard to make the connection that this chunk of the sun that's missing is being blocked by the moon. So that's the moon right there.
So what were some of the misconceptions that you've seen or that you've sort of derived from listening to people?
I think for me, at least for the people that I met this morning, they just didn't really consider that it would have been the moon. I'm not sure what they were thinking it was. I was too excited and I just talked over them because I'm a terrible outreach person. What did you hear, John?
So for me, so this was my view for the most part. And because I was using a C8, so a telescope with a lot of magnification. So we were at about 100x magnification with a wide angle eyepiece. And I think when people looked at it, whether it was on my phone or through the scope directly, they thought that this illuminated part was the field of view, and they were looking somewhere in here for the eclipse. Like, oh, maybe the sun is there. Maybe I have to look closer. Like, what am I looking at? So it's almost like, so it was better almost to have when it was projected on the phone screen to be able to point and be like, that's the sun, that's the moon, that's the side of the telescope kind of thing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So cool.
But I also had eclipse binoculars too, left over from 2017. People loved those. Like, that's where I heard, like, because I was passing them around with hand sanitizer. So people were like, hand sanitizer binoculars. They're like got grime on them now just from so much hand sanitizer. But so they would pick them up, and some people would just scream like, "Oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen!" And that was really neat to see. Eclipse binoculars, they were special ones. They were designed for eclipses.
Yeah,
and so they really brought it out. Yeah.
I think that the difference with binoculars versus a telescope that is set up and pointing at something is that the binoculars move around when you move them. So you can tell as the person observing that that's the sun that you're looking at. It's really obvious because it's like, that's the only thing that's there. And I didn't have a telescope set up, so I didn't get any of those. Like, I just had my camera. And so I got more people looking at the little, like, the screen on the camera being like, "Oh, that's so cool." Because they, again, and actually Chris pointed this out in the private chat, that people would show up just for the sunrise, not realizing that there's eclipse going
exactly.
on.
The
And then
neatest thing,
it's like, wow.
someone had draped, so my car was parked right by the telescope, and they brought a big sheet of paper and they put it on the car. And then everyone was doing the different shadow puppets. So we did the dog. And then my favorite one is just where you cross your fingers like that.
Yeah.
And then we were having a contest to see how many eclipses we could make.
That's awesome.
And then someone showed up with a colander.
Oh, well, then they win.
I just made like 500.
Oh, that's
so
crazy.
cool.
That's so cool.
This is cool for me because I know what it is, but it was kind of like an optical illusion, whereas I was like, I had to remind my brain every time that it was the moon moving in front of it. Because it did just look like, the Pac-Man, like that was a cutout part. It's also the first time I saw an eclipse through solar viewers, so it was cool how much light it just cuts down.
Yes.
I had that feeling that a lot of people probably had, that you were showing things too.
We got asked for stats on photos. The one that's in my background is at focal length 300 millimeters, f/29, and exposure time 1/2000th of a second. And the ISO was not listed, but I'm pretty sure it was 200.
Yeah. So that high focal ratio would have toned down the brightness quite a bit, so that you get, because otherwise you just see a giant splotch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like fiddling around with the settings with the lowest ISO possible and the highest aperture possible.
Yeah. And you were looking at your screen, right?
Yeah, I was looking, because so the camera that I used was one that I didn't care about, just in case I melted the sensor, because I wasn't really sure what we were supposed to do. And I didn't have a filter. And it was a Canon where the light goes through the lens and then bounced up to the eyepiece and through the eyepiece, which means that if you look through the eyepiece, you're looking at the eclipse magnified with the naked eye. So I did not do that.
Yep.
Take the eyepiece just in case.
I just like stood really far away from it until I pressed the button, and I was like, okay, we're safe now. Yeah.
And did you use a tripod?
I did. And I got advice from someone who was there who follows us on social media, actually, who pointed out that I had my camera at eye level. And he was like, it's windy, so you should put it lower down so that the wind affects it less. And I was like, duh. Which it just didn't occur to me. I just don't take photos that often. So that was a neat tip.
Awesome.
Mine's pretty simple. I had eclipse glasses. I bought an extra pair of eclipse glasses and put them in front of my phone. And my dad and I just turned down the brightness setting on your phone so it doesn't take in as much light. And then I fooled around with it on Photoshop to see the best part. Yeah. As I said, very amateur.
Yeah, but what you did is you made it look interesting, though. And that's really cool.
And it's also a really nice frame around your head for Zoom.
Mhm.
We were going to briefly touch on the kind of movements involved when looking at an eclipse, because it's weird, and like humans are really not we aren't built to really think about movements in this way. John's got his actual circles up, spheres. I have a not spherical moon, because the sun is rising in the east and it sets in the west. And so everything in our sky, and along with the moon that's over top of the sun, seems to be moving from east to west, except the moon, everything's technically actually moving from west to east, just way slower than we see it moving east to west. And so when you're looking at this eclipse, the moon was going that way across the sun, even though they were both rising this way. So it was doing this
yeah, because it's confusing how you get that sort of devil horn effect, as it comes up over the horizon. If we look at the lighter ball here, there's your, devil horns. And then as it went higher, to if you were in Northern Ontario like that, right? And so, so we're here on Earth spinning counterclockwise, which is what makes stuff rise in the east, set in the west. And then the moon is also orbiting counterclockwise as it cuts the sun off. So, yeah. It was cool.
It's super cool. And it's one of the few opportunities where you really notice the movement. Like you really notice that the moon is going that way, or no, sorry, this way, whichever way it's going. you have a background reference where if you're looking at, the moon in a sky that's just stars, it's harder to keep track of which star the moon is by and how close it is. It's easier to do that over a couple days, but it's not as easy to do that like live. So it's a really neat experience. Glad so many of you got to see it. And if you didn't, There's a partial eclipse October 14th, 2023, and a full eclipse, total eclipse, where the path goes through Toronto, well, Hamilton, and then much of the East Coast on April 8th, 2024. So that's going to be really exciting.
Cannot wait.
It's going to be so good.
Now, I guess we actually have to talk about the moon
And the targets for this week.
and the targets. Moons that you can actually see the details on. As much,
Yeah.
I still want to go back and just look at the clips.
Yeah. So this week, I'm going to close most of these tabs. This week we have lunar day Q day -2. And Q day -2 is one of my all-time favorite days. And I think John and Samantha will agree.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites.
Mhm.
It's so
If not.
cool.
Yeah.
It's got really fantastic targets. It's got, they're really well defined. So there's some really cool stuff that we can dive into. Here, the observing day for our target this time is June 15th. Yes, June 15th. And we're seeing it in the evening.
It's kind of cool to point out though, like if you were to start the program, let's say on Saturday or Sunday this weekend, and you had clear skies and observed for 14 days in a row, or even less, like 10 days in a row, you could complete the program in that 10-day span. So it's really kind of cool that you would see all the phases up to full moon from crescent, in which you can get all these targets within the next 2 weeks. So if you haven't started yet, this is the perfect time to start. Yeah.
As the weather gets better and it's warmer, and hopefully you can find a windy location with not very many bugs, you could crush this program in like 2 weeks. It would be great.
Yep.
Man, challenge accepted. Maybe I'm not accepting it anymore. I take it back.
That was a very short acceptance of the challenge. So our targets this week, one of the first ones, I think this crater is really cool. I don't know if I've ever personally observed it. Posidonia.
I got it. Yeah.
And it looks really cool because it's got this, like, it's got such a, I don't know, like a raised section in the middle and an extra little crater in the middle, and it just looks so cool.
It
Yeah.
looked like two smaller, when I said flat looking crater with two smaller ones around it. Because I think I viewed it when I was a little far away from the Terminator.
I always think it's Poseidonus, like god of the sea, or
Same.
But then there's an extra
Aquaman
eye.
or something. But it's not. It's
Posidonius.
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 Yeah, so I called it, I thought it looked like a type of seashell, and because you've got that
This time. I could see that.
second sort of like a tertiary system of walls in there.
Mhm.
And then below that wrinkle ridge going down near the Sea of Serenity there, that's called the Serpentine Ridge. Is that a target, or is that just really cool?
I don't think so.
I don't think it's a target for Explore the Moon, but it is really cool. It looks really neat.
Add that to John's list of things that should be a target but aren't.
Honestly, John, you should just do the Isabel Williamson program.
I really should. Yeah.
Because the Isabel, and we've said this before, but for those who are new, the Isabel Williamson program is the harder lunar observing program in the RASC. It has more targets. They're much smaller and more challenging to find. So that's the next step if you finish the Explore the Moon program.
Yep.
We have Apollo 17. This is an Apollo optional target day. We have 2 optional Apollo targets for Q day -2, and Apollo 17's landing spot is one of them.
Yeah. And so that was the last time humans were set foot on the moon.
Aww.
Apollo 17. Because Apollo 18, they built it and it never flew. And that's the one that's at the Smithsonian.
Right.
So it's a real lunar lander that they have there. And so that's cool. And then I believe the command module went up for Apollo Soyuz.
Do you know what year Apollo 17 was in?
I think it's 72, 73.
So the Apollo missions happened in like a decently short time then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it
really
in
fast.
my book here. Not that book. My other
Check
book.
out John's book.
Yeah, it's space missions that changed the world.
There you
We're having
go.
the Apollo missions in them.
Anyways,
Yeah.
we have another Apollo target too that's coming up, so Jenna can keep
We
going.
do. I also realized that we missed the 2. As always, we missed a bunch of the non-craters, and by we I mean I. Lacus Somniorum, which is at the top of Mare Serenitatis. Again, we always recommend that you observe the seas and lakes in this case. on a full moon. It's a lot easier to see them then. But it is up above Posidonius, and it is relatively easy to see on June 15th. So if you want to draw it, it's there.
I think a lot, and Mare Tranquillitatis is also quite visible, not full of it, all of it, but
But you can see a fair amount, yeah.
yeah.
So John, sorry, you were going to tell
Yeah,
us
so
about
it was,
Apollo
it was
Track, and then
December
we'll-
7th, my birthday, 1972
Nice.
was Apollo 17 landing.
Oh,
If
wow.
we have time following these targets, we're going to talk a little bit about what the future of space exploration looks like, but we are also already spent a fair amount of time on the eclipse, so we'll see.
The eclipse is so cool to talk
It is so
about.
cool. Yeah. So we have Plinius, Ross, Arago, and this one over here, which we were just looking at, Mascaline. They're in a row, sort of, in this like circle that comes out here. In Mare Tranquillitatis, these are small enough
Mhm.
that personally I think that they are worth just drawing all four together.
So I drew Plinius, Ross, and Arago all in one. I didn't have Mascaline in the same grouping of it
Okay.
because that's just what fit in my viewfinder. It depends on, I guess it totally depends on your telescope and everything. They were just like three, they were close to Terminator. They appeared to be slightly more raised than Posidonius.
Posidonius, yeah.
Yeah, for me it was small. There wasn't a lot to see, but yeah, you can view them all in the same kind of go.
And the Ross is the crater that's closer to Mare Crisium here. That's this one here.
Yeah. Named after the character on Friends.
That sounds
Really?
reasonable.
Yeah.
Are you joking?
He's joking. That can't be
Okay.
right.
I'm like, he's the worst character on Friends.
Oh my goodness. I have never seen Friends. I'm not getting in this debate.
Okay. And the
Then we have Apollo
Mascaline.
11. Oh yeah, Mascaline's way out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said it was kind of a boring crater. There's nothing around it. I'm kind of mean to it.
Throw in shade.
Well, if you look at it really close, there's a line of craters in a row. And so they were probably they could have been all the same impact. So whatever it was broke apart and then went do.
Well, now it's interesting. Thank you, John.
Yeah. There's something.
Make amendments to your observing log. Then we have Apollo 11, maybe not everyone's favorite Apollo mission, but the most famous one with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin.
Yeah, I mean, the uninteresting thing about Apollo 11 is that they were only on the surface for a few hours.
Oh.
Well, at least like their spacewalk was only a few hours. So you actually like don't have really any pictures of Neil. Neil had the camera, so all these pictures are of Buzz. And they're really just walking around the site. And so it's those other missions where you get the lunar rover and the geology and all the, a lot more experiments. But Apollo 11 was just the excitement of that first step. What it's all about.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. In theory, I've been told. Speaking of exciting, hold on, let me make sure we're not missing anything. Yeah, speaking of exciting, we get to the most exciting part of the moon next, which is this stuff. I really like this stuff. It's really easy to see. These are three really big craters that are so well defined on the Terminator. We have differing views as to what they look like. I think probably because of you, John, because I think I observed these the first time with you. I call them the Dumbbell Craters, and I think a lot of people call them the Dumbbell Craters.
Yeah.
Samantha doesn't see that.
They look like glasses.
Well, I think it's like the cartoon dumbbell or the olden days where they were round, right?
Yeah, I know. They look like dumbbells, but I saw glasses first, like really round, like Harry Potter like glasses.
Yeah, totally.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have Theophilus, Cyrillus, and Katharina, which I don't know if we have time to get into the history on that, John, unless you want to do it real quick while I find the next craters.
Well, without going into the history, it's one of 14 near-side craters named after women.
Yay!
Yeah.
The Theophilus, I found when I was viewing it, it was really striking because it had that raised center. I forget what it's called right now because Central Peak. And that was probably the first crater I saw. This is like the first day I ever observed with the central peak. So it was really exciting to see.
We also have Mare Nectaris on there, which will be fully in light. So if you want to draw it, you can. Otherwise, when you find it on the full moon, it is just under, if you follow this little arc of seas, it's under both Mare Crisium and Mare Fecunditatis. And then finally, the last target, which is a really cool one, is this ridge here. And it's called Altai Scarp. Altai Scarp?
I think so.
Rupes Altai, various names. It's a big range of mountains. It's very, very bright. And John, you had a point about this too, right?
Yes, what I really like about the Altai Scarp is if the Terminator is over by the crater at the end of it, Piccolomini, then the whole scarp is beyond the Terminator, but it's illuminated by the sun. It's a very tall ridge or range. And so it is illuminated. It just sticks, hundreds of kilometers out beyond the Terminator.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so I've gotten some really cool pictures of it. Does anyone know the height of it? It's probably a couple kilometers high.
Yeah, I'd have to look that up. I don't actually know.
Remember, mountains of the moon are bigger than you think they'd be, which sort of makes sense because there's not, you don't have gravity and weathering pushing them all down. So like a lot of these mountains are kilometers high.
Just to be pedantic, you don't have as much gravity.
Yeah, you don't have as much gravity. Did I say no gravity?
Yes.
Oh,
you don't have gravity pulling it down. It's like, well, there's a little.
You don't have as much gravity pulling it down, yeah.
And I mean, my own geology may be way off, but it probably didn't have as much of an ice age as we did. That did a lot of our.
It did not have any ice age.
Yeah, no ice age.
Exactly, no ice age.
Indeed.
In terms of the Atlas Scarp, the way I found it was Catarina and Piccolomini. It kind of is on either end of what you're going to see. So that's how I was locating it, because I think I had some issues at first and I had to look on the map and find those two big.
Yeah, and the cool thing about this is at the eyepiece, the contrast is even much better than it is on the screen here. Mm-hmm. Like these objects really, really pop at the eyepiece when they're near that Terminator. That you just can't do it justice with the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, if you are going out this would be 7 p.m. Toronto time, but like even slightly after that, 8 or 9 p.m. Toronto time. Or whatever the associated time is in your time zone on June 15th. So that's exactly this view. It is really well defined even when the Terminator is here. If the Terminator were further over, it might be harder to see, but it's got this really nice, even if you're like zoomed all the way out, you can see this kind of defining line under the Dumbbell Craters. All righty. All right, folks, we did not have time to discuss details on Apollo. But maybe we'll do a little bit of that while we're sketching, if you would like to stick around for sketching, because technically we are at the end of our official program.
Look at us being on time again.
Yeah, we did it on time. We're a minute early. For those of you who are new or have joined in the past couple of sessions, or joined for the first ones and never joined again, we have started adding a 15-minute long sketching session at the end of our talking about targets. And so we're going to sketch today while Samantha gets her screen ready, because Samantha is the ultimate sketcher.
Yeah, so maybe I'll take this week off from sketching and just add a running commentary.
Sure, add running commentary.
That's okay. John getting out of sketching?
Yeah. What a shock.
My sketches weren't that.
If I recall correctly, John, you used your baby last time to get out of sketching.
What?
I'm just pretty
sure. I have them here. Like, remember the colored one? Yeah. So
I'm going to launch the poll for those of you who would like to join, or who would like to have your say in which crater we sketch of our targets today. Blake asked, where is the chat group on Facebook? It is, if you search for RESC, it is the group. We have a page as well, but there's also a group, and you can ask to join and just tell us why you like space, and you will be let in, and you can join in the discussion. All right, votes are coming in. Cast your votes for our target in the next, we're gonna give you 15 more seconds.
I don't
right now, Posidonius is winning, but Theophilus is, which I'm pretty sure I spelled.
It's sort of like, remember that election in Florida where if the person that was listed in alphabetical order just won and you didn't even know he was, anyway.
I think that, oh shoot. Well, once we're done voting, I forgot to show Joanne's photos from the eclipse. I'll show those.
That's okay. Do that because I'm going to need time. I didn't download all the photos. I was just going to download the one everybody chose.
While you're voting, there's Joanne's photos of the eclipse. This is a bit of a time lapse of the time that she was observing. Well done. Very nice. I really like this one too. Also, I don't think that Posidonius, just because it's listed first, is getting all the votes. I think Posidonius is cool.
It is cool. I'm looking at the photo.
Ah.
It's even cooler.
Yeah.
So you think if we had randomized
It would still be.
the list, it would still be the same.
I think it would still be the same because actually Theophilus and Altai Scarp, which I also spelled wrong, are also doing fairly well.
Mm.
All right, you guys ready for the poll to end? I gave you more time than I said I would.
What do we win?
We have Posidonius with 8 votes, and then we have Theophilus with 7 and Altai Scarp with 6. So it was a tight race.
I don't think everybody's voting.
That's it. We had, no, not everyone is voting. We did have a few votes on the other ones, but that's okay. We understand.
I'm trying to think of the
It was a
sassy
tough
word
decision.
for it.
What's that, sorry?
It was a tough decision.
It is a tough decision. Oh, Dave has joined us on YouTube. Hi, Dave.
Can't
You
miss
know what's very
one.
meta? You guys should start chatting. But pretty soon, astronauts that are in space these days, unlike in the Apollo era, astronauts in space have some free time and they do art. So when astronauts go to the moon the next time, it's highly probable that some of them will take their art with them, or they'll be sketching some of these craters from the moon itself.
Oh, that would be cool.
Which could be pretty neat. Yeah, my someone I'm co-writing a book with, or was planning to co-write a book with. She was an analog astronaut and she became a real astronaut. And she's on the Inspiration 4 mission. And what she's going to do on the space flight is bring up these special watercolored paints where the paint, you squeeze the brush and then the paint comes out. And so she'll be in space drawing inspirational artwork.
That's
And so I think as we move out into the solar system, we're going to take more and more art with us, or create art in space, especially if you're on a long duration space flight. Let's say you're going to the moon or you're going to Mars and you've got a lot of crew. They're tasked, they don't necessarily have jobs to do on the journey. You know, so what are you going to do the whole time? Well, there's a high probability. Are they just going to watch Netflix? Probably not.
I would.
Maybe binge watch Friends because you apparently haven't seen it.
Sorry.
My
Okay.
sister was a big fan of Friends, so
Okay.
I have secondary experience with it. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what art gets done in space in the future. So I know the spacecraft that they're sending for the Inspiration mission has a big dome on top. It's going to be the first time I think you'll have. So we have on the space station right now, you have the cupola, which is a series of 7 windows and then one big one. But on the SpaceX spacecraft, they're removing the docking assembly because it's not going to dock with the space station, and they're putting a dome up so that the astronauts can go into this dome, observe Earth, and sort of be inspired and do their artwork. Yeah, it'd be interesting how art changes on the moon, or there's other things that would change too, like entertainment wise, like sports and everything, if you're permanently in space, because normal sports don't work. You're gonna have to invent new sports or change the rules of current sports.
I'm sure an astronaut somewhere has made a sport out of zero or microgravity interactions with things.
Well,
like
the main sport in microgravity is flying like Superman.
Yes, that's a very good sport.
I was going to say, like, you could actually play Quidditch for real.
Oh yeah, you could. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can, because on Skylab they had the jetpack. They were testing the jetpack that ultimately got used on the space station or the space shuttle outside in space, but they used it inside Skylab. So you strap into this thing and you fly around, because Skylab had a big open space inside that space station. And so you could totally just have a broom and your Quidditch stuff and go to town.
Could we just make a flying broom though in general? Like that would be really
because
cool.
you could have the broom having propulsion, like air jets propulsion on it. And that technology is pretty well fleshed out, because the space station has Bumble and another and Honey, which are these robots that fly around the space station and do tasks.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so they're pretty well, and that they're like the third generation of flying space station robots. So they started with spheres, which were these round balls that students could actually fly from Earth or program from Earth. And but
Wow.
yeah, so you could even have like the spheres robots could maybe even be part of a future sport. So like you could shoot the ball, but then the ball has a mind of its own. Like it could have different trajectories. Could be neat.
Yeah, like the golden snitch in Quidditch. Wow, my eraser is not sharp enough for this.
I was going to say this kind of, though, the robot thing is starting to sound like anybody played Portal and GLaDOS?
Yeah.
And we just fight over control of the station.
It's all gonna go terribly. She's gonna run out of test subjects. No, I won't.
I grew up on too much sci-fi to trust all this stuff.
I used to have conversations with a fellow who I think for a while was running Daily Planet. His name was Anthony Morgan. And we worked at the Science Center together, and he would sit down over lunch and be like, do you think we should make AI smarter than us? And I was like, dude, I'm just eating my lunch. And he's like, I think it's just going to happen. Like, I don't think it matters whether or not we should. I think someone's going to do it. And I was like, maybe, like, I'm going to have my sandwich. And then he dove into how we're all somewhat sort of doomed. It's a really interesting thought to have, because like people are probably working on it in their basements. And
well, or big companies. Like if you look up GPT-3, which is I think a Google subsidiary AI company, GPT-3 AI is responsible for a lot of the content that we watch. So a lot of the articles that the business articles that you might read on the stock ticker, that's all written by GPT-3. And a lot of these YouTube videos where you're like, that voice isn't quite right, those sentences aren't quite correct, or why are you choosing this stock footage? It's because that entire video was made by AI.
wow.
Like the creator just told GPT-3, which they have a license to use, to create a video about Teslas or to create a video about blah blah blah. And so you're not watching something that someone's meticulously edited and done the voiceover. Even the voice is done by GPT-3. And
My
so
goodness.
as long as you have a license, the AI can build these things that get viewed by hundreds of thousands of people. Or if it's the case of the stock news on your iPhone, like, you know, those might get read by millions of people, but it's not a human doing it.
So is Wall Street Bets going to start being like robots instead of just internet trolls?
Well, Wall Street's been automated for probably 20 years now.
But that Reddit feed that took down GameStop, we're just going to have
the feed. Yeah. I mean, that could be the AI as well, just optimizing someone's share price.
All right, bringing this back to space, we had intended to talk about Apollo and like where we were going to see space travel going, and a lot of this does have to do with it, because it is a lot easier to send smart robots, up into space than it is to send humans that are constrained by things like not turning to mush when we're launched into space at high speeds. And so there's a lot of really cool ways that we may end up colonizing places. And the moon is, as John put earlier, may become a very busy place.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, you would hope there's some benefit to being there. Like if the ultimate goal is to make humans multiplanetary, you know, the moon is probably your refueling depot or you know, it's better to get stuff in space and manufacture it there than it is to keep launching stuff from Earth, because it's very expensive to launch stuff from Earth. But they say space is a post-scarcity environment. Like there's unlimited resources in space, effectively. Whereas on Earth, you're constrained. You have a lot of constraints. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the next 100 years holds. That's for sure.
It will.
Anybody have any predictions? Drop them in the chat.
Yeah, drop them in the chat for what you think might happen. And I think that Samantha and I are done our drawings.
I'm done. Yes. I'm very quiet because I'm just brain dead from waking up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, it's sleepy times. Let's show our drawings and then answer Lisa's question, which is a really good question. And then also check to see if there are any other questions that we should answer. Well done, Samantha. Samantha and I both used the same trick as taught to us by one of our attendees, to shade in the background first, and then add light colors on top, or erase if you're erasing. I chopped up my eraser during the stream so that I'd have an edge. And then there's my sketch of Posidonius.
Oh,
Very
Not bad.
nice.
Could be better, could be worse, but nice to practice. Lisa's question: would each of you go to the moon if we had the chance? John.
Yeah, I think I would. I like creature comforts, so I would wait until the base is established and that you didn't have to poo in a bag on your way.
Oh, I want to play the song.
but we'll do it. We'll
Which
do
is
it
a
at
song
the
that
end.
Jenna played for us in the lead up to the show. Anyway, yeah, so those are my two criteria. So I want to, I want it to be a comfortable ride and a nice place to stay when you arrive.
I could see that. Samantha, what about you?
It's not a one-way trip, right? Is that what we're saying? It's just a visit?
It's the moon, and the moon so far has it ever been a one-way trip?
I mean, even the Mars one-way trip thing was a bit of a scam.
Okay.
Marketing thing, yeah. No one's doing the one-way stuff.
I was gonna say, I always say that if I won the lottery, like big lottery, I would always want to go up to the space station. So the moon's not that much of a jump. That would be really cool. I would totally go for like a little vacation. At the same time, I don't really want it to be a huge tourist trap in the future of whatever it could become, but I'm kind of halfway between John. I want to go and see it as like it is right now. I wouldn't want too much built up there. I just want to see the moon.
Somebody made a point in the comments that the Expanse show was a pretty solid idea of the future. And that's kind of good, but kind of sad because they're right in terms of it's a resource space. Like we send people out to get resources, but it's kind of a crappy future that they have. Like they're sending people out there and then they become impoverished. It's sort of the premise of the Expanse, right? And so we would hope that post scarcity, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I don't think they necessarily become impoverished because if I recall correctly, the people on Ganymede were doing fairly well. But I think it was still riddled with class issues, the way that our regular society is.
Yeah, too. Ganymede was their farming colony, but we don't know too much because of plot holes about what happens to Ganymede.
I don't know anything about The Expanse.
If you haven't watched it yet, it is a really good show. It's also a really good book if you prefer reading it. I preferred reading it. It's a good show. We are at time, so
Anna, would you go to the moon?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I would. I would go on the side of things compared to both of you. So like I would go now, if it were allowed.
Yeah, I'm more on going
yeah.
now, like to see it without anything built up. Just go.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Well, you can sign up for Dear Moon and see if you'll get it.
Is that how?
They're looking for artists. I'm not sure if they picked their crew. They're looking for 8 artists to go to the moon in 2 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
I forgot. I realized while we were doing the show that I have been working on my Loom Moon, but I have not sent it or shown it to anybody yet. So I will show it in our last episode, which is a week from today. We're going to be talking about troubleshooting. Or sorry, that's a lie. We're going to be talking about wrapping up the program and how to apply and all that sort of stuff and going over any last questions that you may have. If you have any suggestions for what you'd like to sketch for our ultimate sketch session, let us know. You can post on social media and tag hashtag #RaskMoon@noon, or you can send emails to us directly. For Samantha and I, our contact information is on rask.ca.
We're accepting emails at outreach plus moon at rask.ca. I think Jenna will probably send it into the chat. That's filtered into when it says to be specifically regarding Moon at Noon. And we also just linked the Facebook group if you would like to join as well. It's our largest community at National with 8,000 members in the Facebook group. So it's a big discussion group. Welcome to join. And I think that wraps up everything. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you on our last session. Bittersweet. If you woke up early this morning, go take naps.
Yes, nap time for
You
everybody.
deserve afternoon naps. I'm telling myself that even though I took a morning nap.
That's what time it is.
And
Right.
we were on time. So
Yeah, and we were on time on all aspects of this. Well done to us. All right, take care, everybody. Clear skies. Happy
Bye.
observing